Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being the show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Blue Eye Samurai, Season 1, Episode 5. A great episode. I'd even go as far as saying fantastic episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I think this episode was so beautifully constructed and executed, like the parallels and just... I think it does such a good job of, you got three different tales going on at the same time. You have the story of the Ronin and the bride. You have Mizu's past, and you also have Mizu present day, and how these stories are so interwoven, especially because you're looking at the parallel between the Ronin and the bride. You think that Mizu is the Ronin in this case, but she's not. There's a lot of parallels to the Ronin. I mean, I think some arguments you could be like, maybe she's the Ronin and the bride, but no, she is the bride in this story. But it's like, that is a depressing story, and it's sad, but it's also, Mizu's story is depressing and sad. It's just heartbreaking because you thought you knew the levels and depths to it initially, but we didn't. We were only scratching the surface. We're immediately picking up with, let's start off with the past stuff and kind of interweave that with the bride and the Ronin story, and then how that all influences Mizu today. So in the past, we're catching up with Mizu like almost immediately after. This is sometime after she left the sword maker to go on her path of revenge, and she's looking for, I think, the first white man that she's hunting down. But she's not as probably shrewd as because she's currently, and this is kind of a parallel to kind of keep in mind too, as we're breaking this down, is she is torn between who she wants to be, like that Ronin, like not just a Ronin, but just like being filled with revenge, but also there is a human there despite what people will say. She is still human, and so she didn't want to just like casually kill people. She doesn't just casually kill people. It's usually in a very self-defense manner, as I've kind of brought up before now. So showing, yes, there's still humanity there, and the fact is that she wanted to not bother these people. It's just like, hey, just tell me where the white man is. And they stabbed her and threw her out. And she was begging for help, but no one would help her until, as the tale kind of tells you, it's like, oh, this, the Ronin saw a vision from God, because the Ronin was very much like Mizu, of like, hey, my lord was killed, and I went on a rampage of revenge until got a vision of the goddess that showed me a different light. He ends up meeting like this woman and ends up falling in love. She kind of steers him away from his revenge. In Mizu's case, she finds her mom. I threw that out there like, there's no way her mom would actually fake her death. She did. I mean, in her mind, it's like, I did it for both of our sakes, which is kind of sad too, because it's like, in all that time, you never came to get me. Because, I mean, and I think that speaks volumes about Mizu in the past too, that Mizu never confronted her mom. At least from what we saw in the story, she never badmouthed her mom. She never confronted her mom for her mom. Like, yeah, you faked our death, and you try to justify it by being like, hey, you spared me. Because we saw, like, she did have this beautiful moment. Well, it showed Mizu, like, yeah, they were playful together at one point in time, but then her mom shaved her head. That might have been around the time her mom started getting high. That might, like, opium might have, her way to process and deal with things, and maybe that's when she got a little meaner. Maybe, I don't know. But we did see this beautiful moment between Mizu and her mom, and I was wondering if their relationship was always kind of the way it was. I got like why she was the way she was. It's like, I got to protect us. If you get found out, if I get found out, we're both dead. So just like this situation, but you left Mizu alone, all that she had to endure on her own. And even her mom was like, no, I knew you'd be like water, that basic, almost like you'd survive, you'd grow, and you'd be fine on your own. I knew I'd be doing you a favor, because that way you'd be able to move swiftly like water. You wouldn't have to worry. I knew you'd be able to kind of hide yourself, and I did. But it's like, you weren't just doing that for Mizu's sake, you were doing it for yourself as well, because whether she wanted to admit it or not, she was kind of chained down by Mizu. She couldn't live a life because she would forever be on the run. So I think there's that sad aspect of, in a way, Mizu became an anchor that held her down, and she was kind of free for her. But once again, she never bothered looking for Mizu, and she didn't seem that distraught. It's like, oh, you came back in my life. Now you can go off and be a bride, even though Mizu was like, no, I want to go get revenge. But her mom saw an opportunity to use her. It's like, no. You're more, you could be a bride. And it's all, and then trying to shame her, like, oh, I did so much for you. I would do anything for you, but I guess you wouldn't do the same thing for me. The manipulation, even though Mizu was driven to revenge because she thought she lost you all those years ago and she wanted to get revenge for you, and you were just living your life. Yes, you were, weren't probably living the best life. Obviously, you were, sadly, she was in the prostitution lane, which they refer to her mom as, calling her a whore, but I don't know if she was actually in the sex trade before she had Mizu. She might have been, doesn't matter, doesn't justify what happened to her and, all that happened afterwards, but it is that cycle of once you're kind of lost in that, you can't find your way back to the surface anymore. Which is a beautiful parallel to Mizu, but yeah, she's being being married off to Mikio, a swordsman who lost his honor and was kind of sunned away by his lord, so it is a situation of, yeah, he can't put up too much fight or fuss and can't complain too much. So initially they're both kind of resistant to each other. At first you're kind of like, oh, Mikio's actually a good guy because you had Mizu kind of being like, okay, he's going to like, take advantage of me, but he's like, I'm no brute, I'm no beast, like I'm not going to, he just pull like his like bed like away from her. It's like, I'm not going to like touch you unless you want me to. And it is this beautiful story of like there is love that is forged in that moment. At the same time, with the parallels of the Ronin and the bride, that he still had his moments of trying to, he was happy for a time, but that rage started peeking in and out. And the same parallel happened with Mizu and Mikio, but they did grow happy, and it was really sweet. Even got to the point that, they got Mizu's mom off of opium. It's like, this ain't enough money to buy my... It's like, we thought it'd be better if you didn't have any more. And so, for it done, it seemed like her mom was in a better place. She wasn't doing opium anymore. It seemed like everything was working out. I was like, but you knew like there was going to be a tragic twist to this, and you just wasn't... I'll start thinking like, okay, so maybe it isn't just Mizu's mom. Maybe it's about Mikio, but then it kind of becomes about both of them. But then I'm like, no, it's kind of just all about Mizu in the end. But the parallels being that despite the happiness, the bride and the Ronin had a child, and Mikio, like I said, I mean, for Mizu and Mikio, like everything was great until that anger, that rage, what was buried underneath started rearing its head. So Mizu and Mikio ended up fighting each other. It was meant to be kind of a playful training thing, but that side of her came out, like that demon kind of arose, that Onryu to some extent, that burning rage inside of her. We haven't got to the Onryu aspect of it yet, but it ended up burning up inside of her, and so she thought nothing of it and just thought this was a little playful, and she kind of got the best of him and then kissed him, but he pushed her away in that moment because it's like, you are a monster, because she's not very ladylike, even though like they opened themselves up to her, like she told him everything about like, right, her path of revenge had to become a man so that she could, get her revenge. And he understood, because she was like, yeah, I want to get revenge about the monster who made me the way I am. And now him saying that she is a monster, even though trying to tell her before she wasn't, because for her, she got the thrill of battle. And I think it's like, that's not very ladylike, just very much like a man. So that's what he hadn't seen, that side of her before, because she placated a lot of who she was and buried it, and she thought she could finally be open with him a little, of like, yeah, I'm actually really good at this swordsman stuff. But it's like, I think it's a little deeper than that. It's like he saw what was swirling beneath her eyes, that, like I said, but the thrill she got from it, it scared him. And I was kind of worried about that, because you saw it in his eyes. It wasn't like excitement or whatever. It was like, no, he was scared. And she tried to, placate herself even more, especially when her mom was like, oh, I gave you golden leaves. And what did you do? You spat in them. And so she tried to win him back, just like the Ronin was so consumed by his rage that it still peeked through. So the bride tried to perform a dance to woo him back in. And it worked for a time until the rain washed away the red of her kimono, and it revealed the sigil of the phoenix, the clan and tribe that was responsible for the Ronin's master's death. And in that moment, it's like he burned everything down after finding out. Not only killing his bride, he killed their own child, their daughter as well. Because, and it's kind of similar. Like I said, in that moment, you're still thinking, oh, the Ronin's supposed to be Mizu, but it's like, no. At that time, like, soldiers showed up, because also Mikio took away Kai, the horse that was never supposed to be given to like his lord, because he was like, no, this horse is too good for my master, so it is yours. He took all his horses, including Kai, and gave them to his lord, trying to get some semblance of his honor back, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it seemed at the time he sold Mizu out because they came there looking for it. It's like, oh, you're the half breed, blue eyes and stuff like that. And at the same time, it's just like, right, you get so caught up in whatever that you, or like I said, burning everything down, that the Ronin will go as far as killing his own child and his bride because he could not let go of his revenge. And for maybe in Mikio's case at the time, it's still unclear. Like, maybe he sold her out because he was so distraught of like, this isn't a woman I married. This is a monster I married. I see you for what you really are. And in that moment, that betrayal and that beautiful like back and forth, the bride still like might be dead, but like there wasn't that body got filled with hatred and revenge and became an Onryu, which is kind of like, I looked it up, I wasn't quite sure, but basically it's kind of like this ghostly being that's kind of like a ghost / demon that's supposed to kind of bring about like death and destruction and kind of be like a representation of calamity, even be potentially the cause of calamity, but or like natural disasters and stuff like that. But in that moment that the bride became an Onryu, so did Mizu, and she takes, God, I forgot what the weapon's called, but it's that spear-like weapon. It's a naginata, and she ends up taking that and slaughtering all the warriors that were coming there to collect the bounty. And Mikio, like, what had set her off was Mikio left, so that made her go like, no, he's the one that betrayed me. But he eventually comes back and he's like, no, it wasn't me. I'm sorry I was a coward, but I did come back to actually help you. It's like, I wasn't one that sold you out. It was your mother. Notice that she's doing opium again. How does she afford it? How does she have the money for it? And she's like, no, I sold my body again. She kind of went back to prostitution. It's like, that's how I did it. But obviously he ran away when you were surrounded. He didn't come and help you. And it's like, I didn't know how that scene was going to play out, because I was like, there's a good chance Mizu might kill both of them. I don't know, because even she wasn't sure in that moment. And just for her, it's just like the two of them get into an argument back and forth. He's calling her a whore. I thought Mizu was going to end up killing Mikio because he called her mom a whore, but she just walks away. She drops the nada and just like walks away, because for her in that moment, it's like, I can't trust either one of you. And what was the point? This life that she was holding on to, it all fell apart. She doesn't know who to trust, because both of them, it's like, right, this is the man that called you a monster. He abandoned you. If he really loved you, he would have fought with you in that moment. He wouldn't have ran away, coward or no coward. So it's like she had to be the strong in that situation. But also, I think a lot of the unresolved issues, like I said, that Mizu never brought up with her mom. It's like, you abandoned me and you pushed me into this marriage thing the moment I came back into your life. You acted like you didn't even miss a step. It's just like, oh, let's get you married and so you can take care of me, because and guilted her into it. So I think in that moment she just let the situation play out. Mikio kills her mom, and then she kills Mikio. And just casually like threw the knife back, didn't turn back to look at him, and just kept walking. And that beautiful shot of the clouds in the form of a demon, and just like its mouth open, and just like the lightning striking and making the eyes blue in the mouth. I was like, oh, that's so beautiful imagery there. Just as she's becoming this, just became like all that she was. And I love that line at the end of the episode that ties into all of this, that it isn't just one thing that leads to this. Like, it's a culmination of a lot of stuff, but it was more so specifically one final ingredient pushes someone over the edge to become an Onryu, and it is love poisoned by betrayal. And it's like, oh, that's so beautiful. And now it's like, because revenge is all she has left, because what would she be without it? It's empty. Like, she'd have to live, because it's tragedy played out because of what she was made. Like, you combine all that with her own self-resentment. Like, she hates herself, what she is. She looks at herself as a monster, an abomination, because it's that thing I've talked about it in other ways, because, on some level I feel that, like, that issue of when you have these insecurities or you think of yourself a certain way, the moment someone says what you already feel about yourself, in my personal opinion, it feels like it cuts you 1,000 times deeper. So she's always viewed herself as a monster, and maybe in the moment she felt like she was letting up on seeing herself as a monster with Mikio, for him to say you are a monster cut her 1,000 times deeper. Then it reiterated what she already thought about herself, and it just, and the way her mom viewed her, because it's like her mom wasn't, because in her eyes it's like you were trying to not even protect me, you were trying to protect yourself, but it's like you stayed with me, but you actually didn't stay with me because you faked your death. You claimed it was to protect me, but wasn't really just about you. Like, this whole thing was all about you. That happiness crumbling like that. It is such a tragic tale in both fronts of the situation with the Ronin and the bride, as well as the situation with Mizu. And it's just, once again, that beautiful reveal of like, nope, she's not the Ronin in this situation. She is the bride in so many ways. I was like, I love that how that was constructed. Like I say, it's so excellent. And you take all of that, all these moments that built up to make Mizu who she is right now, and you cut to present day, her fighting off all of Hamata's men. And taking down, like, obviously darkens the place, has the others hidden down below, has Ringo protect them, but Akemi decides to help out too, because for her it's like, I've always been captive my entire life. This isn't me being brave. This is me, like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die free. And so in this moment, they both end up defending the place, and Akemi ends up killing two, but Ringo ends up killing one person. He cuts off one dude's fingers and then, like, accidentally stabs the other guy, but the guy whose fingers he cut off, Akemi ended up killing. So they were trying to protect the place, and Mizu ended up getting wounded during her, like, fight. I mean, that showcases, like, once again, this ain't some, like, perfect thing of like, oh, she walks away unscathed. It's like, no, she was actually pretty banged up throughout this fight. Then once again showcasing that there is still some humanity in Mizu. She isn't just a full demon. It's the fact is that she came across one of the warriors who was cowering. It's like someone on the younger side. She let him go and started still fighting the others, but that, like, slipping in and out as we cut back and forth between the tale and of the Ronin and the bride, as well as Mizu's past, as she's kind of like going in and out of consciousness. And like I said, it's showing us who she is and how she got to where she is. But she's fighting tooth and nail until she gets outside. She's underneath all of them, like, because she was blocking with the door and they pushed on top of her. I'm like, how is she going to get out of this? And then they showed the past stuff with the Naginata, and she makes a makeshift Naginata, which that scene was so goddamn, like, brutal and amazing. Like, combining the weights, and I don't know if that was always the plan or did she think of that in the moment, like, because that was the whole point in the past too. Because I was like, but how's that? Because Mikio had said the point of, like, when he pulled out Naginata, oh, it's good for dealing with a crowd. And I'm like, how is that going to help? I was like, well, I'm assuming you're setting that up, but I'm like, there's no Naginata nearby. Nope, I'm gonna make my own. I'm like, did she think of that on a spur of the moment? There's no. Did she plan for that? I don't think there's any. I think what shows her as a good battle tactician, thinking that, like, in the heat of battle, thinking that. Not unless that is something, but she's never pulled that out before. I mean, to be fair, she's never been, at least from what we've seen, never been against this many opponents at once. But, like, that was so beautiful and brutal when she put the Naginata together and was slicing motherfuckers, dude. Limbs were getting, I mean, it had been sliced off before, but there's some people who were, I mean, they either bled out or, I don't know if because there's at least some people she cut off just their, like, leg or whatever, but she was slicing dude motherfuckers. The brutality of that scene, and it's like, right, in that moment, it was just pure fight or flight, and she cut through everyone, and then she got to the guy again who was cowering, and without him, she took a beat, still killed him. Because it's just like, right, there's no room for, like, there's no angels here, only devils. And in that moment, just, like, kill. Because I think for her, it's just, she wasn't in a merciful mood in that moment. Because I think for her, it's just, right, you might come back later and be an issue. You know, I mean, that's was the mistake was made when it came to her. She was left alive, and she became life played out tragically the way it did, and made her into who she is. And she brings Hamata in front of Madame Kaji and the other ladies, and it's like, right, this is for Kinyuo, and for them, it's like they got the revenge, and even it's like, even Kaji's like, wow, you're more men than any person I've ever met. And so when it comes down to it, Ringo obviously was like, yeah, I killed someone. Well, Kimmy killed too, but he was like, but it felt darkness. He's not built for this life. Obviously, like I said, I brought that up previously of like, yeah, he hadn't killed anyone yet, so now it was a little different. Because he especially wasn't trying to kill that guy, because once again, he could have fed him more than one of those like mushrooms, but he didn't. He only fed him one, just enough to make him sick. And now I get to like kick you off the cliff. There's no guarantee it would have killed you, probably because he knew it wasn't deep enough. But Ringo knew for sure he hadn't killed that guy. But this is the first time he definitively had killed someone, and you have Mizu saying like, right, don't stay away from the darkness. That's kind of what you have to do if you want to be like me. And when the people came to get Akemi, Mizu didn't fight. Because in Mizu's mind, it's like, right, you're not built for this. You think you are, but I get what you want. But even last episode had made this whole point of you are kind of selfish, because the fact is that, yeah, your life isn't great. It's kind of being determined for you, but it's a better situation. It's like, right, you might not like your life being what it is, choices being made for you by other people, and your life being down this one path. It's like, I think for Mizu, it's like, I would give anything to have that. I mean, she kind of did, but it was all taken from her in many different shapes and forms, and it's just, Akemi ends up getting taken, and Ringo's like, you're just going to abandon her? It's like, I think from Mizu's perspective, it's like, I have my revenge, that's all I see, and it's like, I can't have any happiness or weakness along the way, and there's just no reason to hold on to that. And for Ringo, it's like, you are no samurai. It's like, I never said I was. You're the one that made, I told you from the beginning what this was about. But it's like, because he'd seen the darkness in her eyes. And I wondered if the bell would come off because Ringo would accidentally lose it and she would leave him behind. It's like, no, he willingly takes it off, because it's like, you aren't the person I thought you were. And just, you could see how much that hurt Mizu, but it's like, no, I've got my path. Fine. And for her, it's probably a thing of, well, this is better. I'm better off alone. I don't need anyone, which isn't true. We all need somebody. Solitude is no way to go through life. But once again, when that fire is burning inside of you, and it's like, even when you get revenge, what will you have left? Nothing. But for her, it's like, that doesn't matter. She's not thinking about the future, because she has, in her mind, there is no future. As long as I'm able to kill who I need to kill, get my revenge, I don't care what happens to me afterwards. There is no future for me. And so it is sad, you know, lost like the person who was ride or die, who has helped you, who has been there for you, has been useful, and they've kind of left your side now. So I don't know if Ringo's going to go back to that coast town to go back to training at the shops, or is he going to actually go back home to his father? That seems like a likely case. Who knows? But Akemi, we find out that she's the one here with the Shogun. She's already given to the Shogun's son. And they're watching that tale, and she's like, no, the difference is, she's like, I've met a real Oryu. There is no love. They're not capable. I thought I saw something in their eyes, but it's like, no, they're not capable of love. Like, there is nothing there but darkness, which is so sad, because once again, Mizu isn't just me. Like, you are shaped not just by nature but nurture. Like, life has, like, it was so many things stacked upon themselves that led Mizu to where she was. She isn't just purely the way she is. Like, that's a sad thing of, and Akemi's not going to see the direct parallels. She only will see the Onryu of it all, but like, no one knows Mizu's past, because Mizu hasn't shared it with anyone, hasn't talked to anyone about it. She keeps that to herself. If you knew the tragedy of what she'd been through, we as the audience can see the sympathy behind it. Not everyone else can, because they just see a demon, and you find out that there are layers to people. Like, not everyone, don't judge a book by its cover type of situation. But it's like, yeah, like, Mizu kind of stripped away the last of her humanity, maybe in this episode, and like, all she's doing is full steam ahead revenge. But what does this mean going forward for the next 3 episodes? What does this look like for Mizu on her own now, and just kind of doubling down, you know? Will that humanity try to creep up? And it was just beautifully constructed, and I don't know how to, I'm just going to keep reiterating what I've said, and it just, it is a sad tale in so many facets, and like how like how it's all interwoven together like that is so amazing. So, and like I said, I mean, I guess that's when it comes to storytelling, I guess that is the in a twisted sense, those become like the most classic of classic tales are the tragedies, you know, like Mizu's stories. But yeah, I'm excited to see where the next episode ends up ultimately taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time when you meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.